Hello, everyone, and welcome to the State of Pool Service 2024. We're still gathering in the last few attendees. We have a huge crowd today. I'm very excited about the information that we have before us. This is a rare report. We'll get into it at the top of the hour, so stand by. I've got the top of the hour, and so we're going to get started. We have a report issued recently by Skimmer, the State of Pool Service 2024. It's the most comprehensive report of its type that I've seen in a long time. And we're here to talk about some of the top takeaways from that industry report. My name's Scott Webb. I'm editor of AQUA magazine. We have with us Jack Nelson, CEO of Skimmer, and Nikki Aosta, who is Director of Marketing at Skimmer. And we're going to get into the guts of this report, which contained a lot of information about what's happening right now, especially in the service sector. So let's get going.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Nikki. Great to meet you all. And at Skimmer, we have a pretty clear mission, and it's one we repeat throughout every meeting that we have, every team gathering that we have. And our mission is to help pool pros build better businesses and modernize the industry, not only with software, but through content like this and industry reports, and taking kind of our wealth of data and being able to leverage that data to provide insight into what's happening in the pool service industry. Jack, you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'll first off, thank you guys for having us. We're really excited to be here. We're longtime readers, first time participants in the podcast, at least for me. Yeah, I would add to what Nikki said is, we're fortunate that we have a really big reach of people using Skimmer. We have 25,000 techs every week using our app, and that's covers almost 700,000 different backyards or pools. And so we're in this sort of unique position where we have access to a lot of data that we thought, hey, wouldn't this be really great for the industry if we could aggregate it and then anonymize it and share it, give it back to the industry. As you said, Scott, we did a lot of research on the industry over the last 5 years, and we just haven't seen anything like this. So we thought there was a real opportunity to fill that void and create something that hopefully will benefit the industry for years to come.
I think it's super helpful for people to see what other people are doing in the same industry. I think we learn best from each other and from seeing, what our successful colleagues are doing. So this report, I think, will offer people today some ideas, I think, for their own.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, one of the neatest things about this industry is the willingness to help everybody. And there really is a mindset of sort of the rising tide lifts all boats. And if we can do something at Skimmer that helps somebody else, and if our customers can help their customers, there's really that sort of really neat collegiality to the industry that is really pretty special.
Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit about the report too, as we get into these takeaways. So the report was sent out by our media partners to our customers, posted in Facebook groups and in social media, and we invited everyone to participate. It was completely anonymous. We had about 1,700 people take the survey, which is not a short survey. There were about 50 questions in the survey. The only sort of identifying information that we collected was a zip code, and that was so that we could get dialed in to specific states and regions and get into this data a little bit deeper. But it was completely anonymous, and we combined that with, as Jack said, our Skimmer data. We have a lot of pricing data, and that is always kind of something that I think our customers are always interested to know kind of what's happening in their area, especially when we're going through, a period of inflation. So we took all that data and combined it into this report, and we're going to get into the top takeaways from the report. So Jack, you want to talk about rising costs?
Yeah, look, it's no secret that costs in the industry continue to rise. And in fact, most of the respondents said that is the single biggest challenge they have, bigger than finding and retaining talent. It's how do you deal with rising cost in the industry? And you can see here that over 80% of the people say that they think cost will, well, actually it was what, 88% said the costs are going to continue to rise, and then we've got the stratification on how much they will. But I think that's the one thing everyone agrees on is costs are going to continue to rise, and then the question is, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, and how do you deal with that? You raise prices. 74% of our survey respondents said that they are going to raise prices, and it's not just, you know, $5 here and there. We're talking like, you know, 10% or 11 to 20% in price increases, which, you know, it's due. If you are paying more in chemical costs and you're paying more in labor costs, that needs to be eventually passed down to your consumers. And so we're seeing a lot. We were in Orlando last week. There are a lot of pros that were asking, like, how do I go about rolling out a price increase? What are other people doing? And this is a good example of what people are doing. They're not, again, small price increases. It's due, especially in certain states.
Yeah.
Talent is another one. Obviously, you have recession fears, but for sure, rising costs were number one by far.
Yeah, and to see that replace talent, I think is really significant. I've been asking that question for many years, and you really can see business owners now really focusing on rising costs and really looking at how that eats into profits. Because I mean, you have to see those costs rise, and then you raise your prices because you have to, and then, you know, so that juggling act is really a new force over the last, you know, few years, and this was really surprising to me.
Yeah, I mean, I remember what is probably 3 years ago, I was talking to some of our longtime and larger customers in the Phoenix area, and if you know, there's probably 20 of them at this event, and I would say 18 of them would have said their biggest challenge was labor, finding and retaining labor, right? And so you've definitely seen a shift in the market just in 3 years.
Very significant.
Yeah, and so looking at rate types, we kind of broke the US into 4 regions, and some interesting things that stood out to us, which were consistent with what we saw last year, was that there are folks that are charging and including chemicals, and there are folks that are plus chemicals. And in many parts of the country, the base rate of the people who are charging on a plus chem models is actually more than people who are including chemicals. And what that means is that there is a lot of money likely being left on the table. We have found that the per stop plus chems model will yield a better result and prevent you from having to be in a situation where chemical costs rise and you're eating those costs. I can't tell you how many people I spoke to in Orlando that just say, oh, we just make our money in the winter, which it shouldn't be the case. You should be able to be profitable year round. And so if you are looking at something easy that you can do to make sure that you are safeguarded against fluctuations in chemical costs and weather patterns, you can charge plus chems.
That is a great point. And if you, like you say, if you're eating those chemical rises, you know, that's something that you have to look at constantly, and really be analyzing and crunching those numbers. Whereas if you're just automatically charging kind of, you know, what you're paying plus a markup, that just simplifies that and has to and will produce a more profitable situation, just like you said.
Nikki, didn't you just tell me earlier today that our pros in Florida, some data we were looking at shows that Florida pros are paying on average $30 a month for chemicals per pool. So, you know, you can just do a little bit of math. if chemicals go up 20%, well, hey, there's what, an extra $6 a month per pool that cuts right into your profit margin. And so it's definitely a little bit, let's call it riskier to not charge plus chems and to take on that risk.
And shameless plug for Skimmer, this is one big reason why a lot of our customers like the way our software operates, is because it makes it really easy for techs in the field to be able to measure what they're putting in a pool in chemicals in different increments, and for that to roll out into an invoice at the end of the month. I know for a lot of Florida folks that I spoke to last week, it's just easier for them to include chemicals, and I think people who are adopting software like ours and like others are figuring out that it can be a little bit easier to track those chemicals and to actually get really dialed in on your profit margins, even down to the pool level.
To the pool level and the tech level, right? You can find out which X is using more chemicals and maybe in some cases wasting. And that's one thing we've talked about, how you can definitely pass on, or you probably should be increasing your prices. But the other part is you should be finding costs you can cut out of your business. And that's a perfect example that Nikki just gave. And there's a bunch of others that when we get to the technology section that are relevant, but absolutely there's ways to just find little areas to cut cost, and those pennies will add up.
And if you are,
area I don't recommend cutting cost is when it comes to labor. And Nikki, I'll let you talk about this one.
Yeah, so when you do charge for full service and you are profitable and you've got the margins to support growth and hiring, and you can pay your employees well, it's better for your company. And so we looked at hourly pay rates, and I actually broke this down into zip code as well. And most full service companies are paying between $16 and $20 an hour. But it was interesting to look at down to the zip code. Even within a metro area, there is high variability between what pool techs are being paid. And so we've seen this in every city that we looked at. There was absolutely no rhyme or reason to it. As far as like looking at a state versus a state, it was like literally every major city. There were people right next to each other that some were paying between $0 and $10 an hour, and some were paying $21 to $25 an hour. And so you have to consider what you're paying your employees and the type of talent that you can attract. It's going to cost more. Hopefully, as a result, you deliver better service. You have lower chemical costs. You have shorter service windows because you have people in the field that know what they're doing. And so if you're looking out there and you're looking at hiring, just understand that that there are companies out there that are paying a premium to attract good talent. And we certainly see this with some of the franchises that are out there that are competing to get techs on board and to grow very quickly. There's a lot of movement sort of in the service tech space. And if you want to bring on good employees, having competitive pay is just one part of that. Jack, you have anything you want to add to that?
Just on the retention side, right? I mean, we all know how hard it is to find talent and then to train talent, especially if they don't have any experience in cleaning pools. And so just think of it like you just made that big investment, and this isn't the place to cut cost, right? On a couple dollars an hour, especially if you've got somebody who's really doing a great job. It's the single biggest cost, both on most P&Ls, but also in terms of the hidden cost of training and hiring and looking at resumes and then training again. And so to the extent you've got folks that are doing a good job, I would strongly encourage you to continue to keep those people and make sure they are fairly compensated.
Some of the most successful companies out there have tailored their compensation to performance in a very they just put a lot of time and effort into making sure that everyone sees that their pay will be the result of their performance and value to the company. And I know that having talked to some of those business owners, that takes a lot of time and effort, but in the end, I think especially in this environment, that pays off big time by keeping everybody feeling like they have a way to perhaps get to a little bit more money if they do certain things, and making them feel a sense of structure and fairness in their compensation. The companies that are retaining people are doing that very well. That's all.
Yeah, and we see that in our customer base. Those customers that are growing the fastest are retaining the most talent, and it's not a coincidence, right?
Not only are they retaining talent, but they're also hiring ahead. So, there are several large customers of ours that will hire one extra employee who will serve as a floater and someone to handle if someone calls in sick. But there's always kind of one extra employee ready to go just in case. And that facilitates growth. If someone calls you and they say, hey, I need pool service, and you don't have anyone to service that pool, you're turning down that business. But if you're always kind of ahead of the game, then you usually, if you can plan for extra capacity and you do want to grow, you need to stay ahead of that curve and to make sure that you have people who are trained up and ready to go, and that if you do get calls or if you're doing marketing and you can bring on new employees, that you've got the capacity to take them in and deliver quality service.
Great point.
So one of the other sort of themes that we surveyed our folks on was how is your business changing? And the theme came out, as you would expect, as in other industries, things are going digital. I will say it's still further behind other industries. And so, like, for example, 75% of respondents are using some sort of software. Let's start with the fact that means 25% of people aren't using any. That's pretty crazy to me, this day and age, not to be using any software for any part of your business. But I see it. I mean, I have a pool and my pro uses Skimmer, but I talk to other people that have pools and their pros don't use anything. In some cases, they have to call their pro to say, hey, you haven't sent me an invoice in 6 months, and they'll come drop off, 6 months of invoices. And that's a pretty archaic way to run a business, and it's a pretty surefire way to run a business into the ground. So I think it's to the point now where if you're not using software, you're absolutely getting left behind. Another big theme we're seeing is people are not accepting checks as much anymore and cash, and they're starting to realize that not only like the odds of fraud and chances for money lost, but just the inefficiencies associated with it. And so we're seeing a big shift toward credit cards and just, yes, there's transaction fees, but when you factor in all of the costs associated with collecting payments or the old school way, the benefits far outweigh the cost. And then the last thing, which I found interesting, is people are starting to shop online a lot more. Of course, we know that in our everyday lives, everyone goes to Amazon on a weekly basis, but we're seeing that in our industry here, where people have a preference now. They want to be able to buy online, and maybe they'll still go to the store to pick up the chemicals or the parts, but they still want to actually buy it online from their home at night, from their truck, wherever they are. And I'm sure we will see that number continue to grow pretty significantly.
Yeah, in the section of the report that covered shopping habits, obviously the pool corps and the heritages of the world, and even to some extent the Leslies of the world, were still very popular, but there was a pretty significant number of people, about 14%, that regularly shop on Amazon for parts. And so again, part of that is likely due to pandemic habits. When things were closed and things were shut down and things were hard to find, people didn't have a choice but to go online and look for things that they needed. And I think that the fact that we've got so many people now doing that regularly is probably a leftover artifact of what happened during COVID. So brand loyalty is interesting. We asked about chemical usage and pool tools, and what we found is that a lot of people don't really have a strong preference when it comes to pool chemicals or certain pool tools. There were some standouts here, of course. Aosta and Orenda were definitely at the top of the list for preferred pool chemicals. And Primate and Riptide, Primate makes the carbon fiber pools, Riptide makes the amazing vacuums. They top the list for products that pros love. And so I think it's interesting when you look at, you know, again, going back to the pandemic, people kind of dropped brand loyalty for whatever was available. And I think, again, it's just an artifact of learning a new habit and being able to shop around.
I will, quick shout out though to those 4 brands that are listed. Those are great brands. We all know them in the industry, and they make quality products and have a lot of quality people behind them. And so I was real pleased to see those 4 names listed there.
All right, so we're going to get into the opportunities for Pool Pros section, really kind of geared to help you grow in 2024. And we'll start off with financial literacy. And Jack, this is all you.
Look, I would summarize it by saying you've got to know your numbers, and you don't have to be an accountant or a numbers guy or gal to be able to know your numbers, right? Again, back to the software theme, there's software that makes accounting very easy. There's software that makes managing your business very easy. And when we talk about like knowing how much money you're making on a per pool basis, like that's pretty fundamental, right? You need to know that to know how much to charge, know how much to pay your tax, know where you should be buying chemicals, et cetera. And so we found that, again, those customers that are able to grow their businesses effectively, it's because they have a basic understanding of their numbers. And again, there's so many online tools and videos you can watch to have just a core understanding of this. You don't need to overcomplicate things. You can see this like sample profit and loss statement on the right. Like, you can keep it very simple, and you should do that and start with that. But as you start to get a little more familiar, you'll realize where the opportunities for growth are. And
I've also gone to some trade show seminars that just did a great job in an hour of giving you the basics of consolidated statements and financial literacy, and that can be a good
where
place.
There's opportunities to save cost. But I would, of all the takeaways, I would say the more time you will have, the
Absolutely.
All right, so people skills. Jack, you had something to start off with on people skills, and I'll cover the employee motivations piece.
Yeah, look, and it's a theme I've picked up on over the last, call it 4 years, talking to different customers in different parts of the countries. But I would almost say it feels like there's 2 schools of thought, and there's probably some in between, but there's a lot of folks out there that I've talked to that kind of view their techs as almost as necessary evils, right? And like, oh, well, you know, they're not the type of people we would want, you know, in our company. We just have to have them in the backyard. And then there's the other school of thought, which I'm certainly a proponent of these are our lifeblood, right? These are the folks that are in doing the work every day. These are the folks that are talking to our customers. These are the folks that we're building businesses around. And I would say that's no different in the pool service space as it is in the technology space. And again, we find that those companies that are really treating their employees well, thinking about how they can build careers out of this, or at least just, you know, have a good experience of that company, those are the companies that are doing well, experiencing less turnover, able to focus on expansion as opposed to constantly dealing with churn. So, you know, I think, and Nikki's going to tell a little anecdote from one of our great customers about how they view employees, but I think there's a real opportunity here for people to realize that the more you invest in your employees, the more it's going to pay off.
Yeah, and so we did a webinar with this gentleman whose face is down there at the bottom, Yummy Pools out of Atlanta, who they have an incredible growth story, have grown from 0 to 1,000 pools in a year. And so he is a business coach and an entrepreneur, and joined us for this webinar and talked about sort of different types of employees and what motivates them. And so one of the big things that he was very firm about was that if you are looking to hire somebody on your team to join your team, don't offer a holographic carrot. And what that means is, like, don't make promises of, yeah, you know, usually people will join, and then, you know, after a while, you'll eventually get to this place where we can, you know, make you a repair tech and then you can make more money. Like, that is not a very concrete way, and it ends up creating a lot of frustration because it doesn't set expectations for your employees. And so he said there's basically 3 types of employees. Advancement people, he said about 20% of the people that you'll talk to are advancement people. If you ask someone if they'd like to advance, almost everybody's going to say yes. But to him, advancement people are the people that are going to come in and want to continually level up. They want to increase their knowledge, they want to know more, they want to do more, they want to grow with the company. And he is a big fan of advancement people because you can create a very good path for these people by having career paths. You know, a Tech 1, Tech 2, Tech 3, you know, service, a repair Tech 1, a repair Tech 2, a repair Tech 3. So he has a very well mapped out and defined career path. And in order to advance from one to the next, there is a very specific checklist of things that you have to do. You know, whether it's, you know, you have to be able to perform, you know, a filter clean on your own, or you need to be able to change out bearings on a pump on your own. He has a very defined path to help people who want to advance. The next type of folks are the money folks. And these are people who are motivated by money. In Casey's view, these are the people who are going to volunteer to pick up extra work if somebody calls in sick. They're the people that are going to come in on a Saturday, and they're purely motivated by money. And for those people, he incentivizes them with money in the form of, hey, if you can get me customer reviews, I'll give you a $50 bonus for every 5-star review you can get. So he has a very defined way in helping those money people stay motivated. And then the last are the freedom people. And in his eyes, these are people who aren't necessarily team players, because they are, but they're the people that really value personal time. And in his eyes, these are people that are going to come to work, they're going to do a really good job. You're probably never going to hear from them because they're totally self-sufficient. They're going to go home at the end of the day. They're going to show up on time the next day. But don't call them to come in after hours or on the weekend, because they really, really value their personal time. And so by understanding what motivates your employees, you can create paths and rewards and incentives to help that employee stay motivated. You know, a one-size-fits-all approach to your talent pool is not probably ideal in his eyes. And so I highly recommend, if you are looking at growing, that you go back and you look at that. It's on the Skimmer YouTube channel. It's called From 0 to 1,000 Pools in 365 Days, but really, really great advice. There's also a small snippet of that as well in our State of Pool Service report.
Nikki, I
Jack,
just
you have
want
anything
to
to
add
add to that?
one thing to that.
Yep.
I think Casey advocates a sort of a welcome letter where a few of those basic things are spelled out, and it sort of operates like a brief, informal contract, really. Your employee is seeing some things in black and white that they can expect, and if you can deliver on that promise, and it could be fairly basic, it could be a review towards your goals at certain time in their career, that establishes a lot of trust between employee and an employer, and especially in this industry, something formal like that, even though it's fairly informal, can be very valuable.
Yeah, and he does do reviews. He tends to pay at the higher end of the pay scale, but he also has a way of running his company to where he treats each tech as its own individual business. So you have your own truck, you have your own sort of expense account where you can go and buy the parts that you need, and they review those expense accounts once a month. You know, what are you spending on chemicals? What are you spending on parts? What are you spending on lost time? Like he allows them to kind of manage their time and each truck's budget, and treats them as an individual business responsible for their own territory. And so it's a little bit different than what I've seen from a vast majority of full service companies, but it seems to be a formula that works for him by paying well, by understanding what motivates people, By having clear, well-defined career paths, he's been able to grow very, very quickly and still maintain really great reviews online.
Yeah, and I'd love to chime in to say, you know, when we talk to our customers, one of the universal desires is, hey, we want to professionalize our business. We love the fact that Skimmer makes us look more professional in the eyes of our customers, the pool owners. Well, this is the same concept except with employees, right? Like how do pool service companies appear more professional? How do they attract more talent that wants to have a professional career out of this? And so it's the same concept, just applied inward as opposed to outward. And then the other point I'll make is, you know, we've identified, or Casey has, these 3 different people. When I look at our customer base, we have 5,300 different pool service companies using Skimmer. I would say it's kind of similar. It's not a one size fits all. We have customers that are, I would say, freedom people that are totally content using our software as a way to free up their time and just spend more time with their families or whatever they want to do. And that's great. And that's we're happy with those. We have plenty of customers that want to use Skimmer so they can make more money and be more profitable on a per pool basis. And then we've got the group of those customers I keep referencing that are growing so quickly because they want to advance. They want to figure out, how do I build a big company here that someday I can turn over to my kids, or I can sell for a lot of money, or whatever the case may be. But it's definitely not a one size fits all formula. And as we think about employees, you probably need to think about, as the owner of your business, which type are you? What do you want your business to be? Because that might affect the type of people you're hiring as well.
Great points, Jack. So marketing, and I'm happy to take this one, Jack. We looked at the marketing data. You know, the marketing team put this report together. We were pretty interested to know, what are people doing for marketing? And this is consistent with the IVUS report. IVUS is an organization that puts out industry reports, but they found that there wasn't a whole lot of money being paid into marketing. Like full service companies just in general don't spend a lot of money on marketing, especially relative to a bunch of other industries. And so when we asked people, what are you currently doing for marketing? A lot of these, what people defined as marketing, was having, you know, social media accounts and getting referrals. And so what we found is, if you can be a digital marketer, if you can learn the tools of digital marketing or hire someone to do digital marketing, there's not a whole lot of competition in most market areas right now. During the webinar that we did with Casey, he provided a tip that is also shared, not ironically, by the folks at National Pool Route Sales, which was, go and be a Google verified business. Because the first thing that someone's going to do when they're looking for pool service is they're going to go online and they're going to search pool services in my area, and they're going to look at reviews, and they're going to see what comes up. The higher you are on that list, the more likely is you're going to get a call. Google reviews is interesting too, because when you call someone on Google, using Google, they can actually track how quickly that phone was picked up. And so the other part of this is, if you're going to do marketing, if you're going to be successful in being able to convert those leads, you have to pick up the phone. And that was a point that Casey was reiterating over and over. You have to pick up the phone, because folks these days, if you don't pick up the phone, they're just going to go to the next one. I know many of us probably go onto websites and we're curious about something, and you're like, contact, and you open the contact page, and it's a form you have to fill out. And a lot of times those go unanswered. And so if someone is actively at a point where they're ready to make a buying decision, you need to be there ready to pick up the phone. The other cool thing I've heard from some other customers of ours is that there's some creative marketing going on. I'll talk about 2 in particular. One is a guy that services a really exclusive golf club community, and there is absolutely no solicitation allowed. And he knew that every single person in this neighborhood had a pool, but he also knew that he was not allowed to solicit. So he had golf towels made up for all of his customers with his logo on them, gave them all golf towels, and then he made a bunch of branded golf balls. And so when he would go to service a pool, he would take an extra golf ball or 2 and just chunk them over the fence. And what ends up happening is people are on the golf course run across a golf ball on the ground that's brand new, and they're like, cool, I'm going to keep this. And now there's some brand recognition there. And he said it's worked for him. Like, people in his neighborhood were used to kind of seeing his name around, and he was able to get a large share of the pools in that community. Another company, much smaller company, had a birdhouse in their logo, and they went to a craft supply store and found these like really tiny little arts and crafts birdhouses. And instead of dropping off a door hanger, they would buy houses in their defined area that they knew that had pools, and dropped off these little birdhouses with a little note card. And he said, you know, those things probably cost me $4. And literally I got 6 customers out of it, and it more than paid for itself in the first month. So there's a lot of things that you can do for marketing. Sure, having a social media account is great. Relying on referrals is great, but if you're in a high growth mindset, you have to invest in marketing. And Jack, you have some opinions on marketing as well?
I do, but I tend to defer to the experts like you on that, Nikki. I think the biggest theme I have is a lot of people still aren't marketing in this business. I mean, you can see social media, people aren't paying for marketing. You can see social media and referrals, which don't cost anything. Of course you should do them. But there's also an opportunity to get ahead of your competition if you're willing to spend money and spend it wisely and efficiently. I mean, look, only 37% of people are doing any SEO. So if the goal is to try to grow your business, this is the time to do it, because these numbers are going to change, right? In 5 years, 75% of businesses are going to be on using SEO and paying for leads via Yelp, et cetera. So this is kind of, there's a window right now where you can take advantage of the fact that the industry is a little behind when it comes to marketing sophistication.
Yeah, I'll go back to Casey. You know, he was spending at first, you know, about $25 a lead up to $35 a lead, but he was converting more, just slightly over half of those leads. And he said, I literally had positive ROI in month 1. So, you know, it may seem like an expense that you're having to front, you know, and you have to stay on top of it. You have to measure it. If it's not working, you have to try something else. You know, I've heard from plenty of pros, depending on where you're at, the Thumbtacks and Angies and Yelps of the world. In some areas, it's great. In other areas where it's already saturated, it may not be as good for you. But regardless of what you choose, being able to be responsive and answer the phone when someone calls is a really good way to make sure that you're at least tackling that first piece of being able to take your marketing spend and turn it into an opportunity that you can win.
One thing I just wanted to add is really brilliant tactical marketers really put some effort into the pools, you know, that are located by the other pool, which means that adding pools in that area may mean that they literally walk or, you know, drive a half a block or such a short distance that it multiplies the value by reducing the travel time. And so those customers can be more valuable and therefore justify a little extra marketing push.
Yeah, and Scott, I would add to that on referrals is always going to be the best way. And what better than a referral from your next door neighbor? In fact, I gave my pool guy a referral to my neighbor the other day, and it's back to the whole look. If you have labor that is doing a good job and they're going to impress their pool owners, and then you have some sophistication in your operating system to where, like, for example, Skimmer, our customers all get an email that shows their picture was clean. I mean, their pool was cleaned, and here's the readout, and here's a custom message. And like, you can do things like that are going to increase the likelihood of getting referrals. And again, if you can get those neighborhood referrals, that's kind of the jackpot, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of customers who in their service emails, which are a standard part of every visit, at the bottom of their service email, they'll add text that says, you know, refer a neighbor, or happy with our service, refer a neighbor to us and we'll give you X amount off your next invoice. And so that's a really great way. And some of them are very precise in asking for neighbors and not just friends. Like, you have a neighbor who needs service, just to try to keep those routes really, really tight and be able to cut down that windshield time.
I think I may have built a full route for my pool guy by now, and he's given me a an incentive to do it, and he does a great job. So it's a total win-win. So speaking of business, some things that the report touches on, and then Nikki talked about some of the webinars and other content that we have on our website. And you can pick and choose the different themes you want to focus on, but I think there's some really good call outs on the right. And it's all, especially when you look at it through the lens of most folks that are in the pool service business that are our customers or that own their own companies started the business themselves, or they took it over maybe from their parents, or they bought it from a friend. But point is, they were the ones doing the work early on. They know how the business runs. And that's the hardest part is when do you let go of that? How do you let go of that? And you know that when you hire somebody, they're going to do it differently than you did it. And they're probably not going to do it as well. But how do you scale that? It doesn't scale unless you're willing to say, hey, you know what? Good enough is good enough. And again, you kind of focus on your intangibles. Like, you're going to have to treat your customers well. But if you miss something in the backyard, that's probably okay, as long as you have that good relationship with the customer. So that's a huge, I think, sort of roadblock that a lot of pool pros encounter, is they're just not willing to delegate and let go and trust that their techs are going to do as good of a job as they will. Again, that's where software comes in, and there's tools. Skimmer's one of them that has a lot of sort of built-in features that allow you to see photos, allow you to see customer communication, allow you to get real-time feedback and communicate with the techs in the field, that really just allow you to keep that accountability up, but then also to scale your business. A second point to really highlight is this whole concept of you can't be on call. That doesn't scale well either. If it's Saturday evening and you're trying to spend time with your family and you've got a customer calling, like, it's okay to set boundaries and say to your customers, look, we don't take calls on the weekends or on Sundays or whatever you want to choose. But I think if you set those boundaries up front, it's really going to allow you to not only scale your business better, but to have a better work-life balance, which will in turn help you, be more committed to your job. And then I think we've already talked quite a bit about focusing on the team, but to me, that's really where it always starts, right? You hire the right team around you and you trust them and kind of get out of their way and use the right tools and technology to make sure they're doing a good job. But that's how you can really, really build a great business in this industry. And it's not just in this industry. I look at these, I'm like, it's kind of the same with Skimmer and with other industries, right? Like you have to have a good team. You have to have the right systems in place.
Yeah, most definitely. If you want to grow your business, you need to have the time and the energy to work on the business. And you can't work on the business if you're working in the business. So and I see that the break point where I see this is like the one puller who's trying to hire their first tech, knowing that they're going to be taking a lot of their profits to hire that first employee and that second employee, and they're still kind of involved in the day-to-day, and they're still servicing pools, or maybe they're doing all the repairs. If you want to grow, you have to replace yourself. And Casey said, look, if someone can come in and do something 70% as good as I can, I have to let go of like whatever I think is perfect, and just trust that if someone comes in at 70% and I have and I'm optimized in every other way, I have the time and the energy to be able to get them to 80% or 90%. So I think the sometimes good enough is good enough, and you're not your customers on call. Those little things are meant to just convey that your time is valuable. And if you're going to build a successful business and you're going to hire and you're going to grow, you have to protect your time.
I really hope my high school kids aren't listening, because they're going to come home and say, so 70 is good enough on this exam, Dad? It's like double standard, right? Well, let's talk about some of the tools on the next slide. I mean, we've talked a little about technology, but you can see here on the right what different service companies are using to run their businesses. Again, it is just becoming so increasingly clear well, I'll say 3.5 years ago, I think only 15% of the industry was using technology like scheduling software and other, call it business management software. It's up to 35, so that's progress, but there's still a gap. And kind of like advertising, you're going to fall behind if you don't. This is becoming table stakes to have something, some system that allows you to run your business other than pen and paper and binders and route books. You're going to need that if you're going to grow, if you're going to need that if you're going to have that professional look to your customers. You're going to need that if you want to have accountability as you start to hire people. So these are all different platforms that people use. Of course, Skimmer is our favorite, and we've got, like I said, 5,300 companies using it, and a lot of them use Skimmer plus something else on the right here maybe, and that's okay. We're gonna continue to try to build Skimmer to replace a lot of the things on the right. But in the meantime, I would say the more technology you can use, the more you're going to be able to grow a business or have more time to spend with your families, whatever the case may be. Nikki,
yeah, look,
jump in.
I think billing is one thing that comes to mind. And last week at Orlando, the folks that I was talking to that were on pen and paper, I would just ask them, how many hours do you spend on billing and invoicing every month? And it's like, oh, 4 days, 3 days, just days of time where you're stuck at a computer, clicking buttons and cross-checking different sources of information. That's valuable time. Like, how much is your time worth? If you're going to build your business and grow your business, you need your time back. And so having tools that can, like Skimmer, that can take a lot of the manual work that you're doing and put it in a platform and automate the things that you can, the time savings is huge. And it just makes it easier. It makes it easier for text. It makes it easier for customer communication, and it makes it easier for you. That's my shameless Skimmer plug.
It's the time savings and the actual cost savings. Like how many times we hear from our customers, oh my gosh, I was forgetting the bill for this, or I didn't realize how much this cost, and now I see it. And hey, 1 tab of chlorine just paid for my Skimmer subscription 3 times over. And there's all these little things that are very real, and it's real dollars as well as the time that Nikki's talking about. Nikki, you want to maybe end by talking about like when we were in Atlantic City and some of the folks that
Sure. So we were in Atlantic City last fall, and interesting market because the pool season is basically 4 months from beginning to end. But we were there, and there was a couple there that manages pools and right now spas. They have a large spa service business, and they showed up, and they had literally stacks of paper that were printed out, and they were pulling them out on the table, sitting at the table in our booth. And they're like, yeah, we have to bring this with us because if somebody calls us, we need to be able to know, we need to know the address, we need to know what equipment they have on site. Like, we can't manage our business without this physical stack of paper. And that is to most folks who are kind of our traditional customers that I work with, it's a stark contrast to see people that are still operating and running on paper to the point that they have to go to a trade show with a bag full of their spreadsheets just in case somebody calls. So I think there is a large opportunity still. It still blows my mind that 25% of full service companies are not using technology at all. And I'm definitely starting to see a shift. I think there is a subset of the population that is aging out of the business, and they were people who are not born with phones in their hands. And we're starting to see a lot more younger, more technically savvy people coming into the business. And we have a lot of techs too that'll go from one company to another and just say, hey, like, can we get an app for our phone? Like, why are we using paper? Once you've had that experience of being able to do everything on your phone and look up customers and have gate codes and complete your route stops and know what you're supposed to do at every single pool, like, going back to paper after that, it's not an option. So I think there's definitely opportunities to grow if you are savvy, and you don't have to do one or you don't have to do one of these or all of these, but pick a couple, pick something that you can focus on and try to tackle it. I think if you just pay attention to one of these, functional areas and opportunity categories and just pick it and run it for 2024, I think it'll make a measurable difference in your business, in your profitability, in your tech satisfaction, in your, in your profits. So yeah, we hope you like the report.
There's no way we'll get to, well, I did want to mention that this webinar will be available within 24 hours. So for people who want to either share it or go through it again, that will be available for all registrants. Nikki, did you want to mention some of these resources?
Yeah, sure. So we covered the report today. The report is free. It's available on our website. We highly encourage you to download it. We're going to keep doing this every year. We've already gotten some great feedback. There are categories that we want to dig into next year, which include things like a more detailed breakdown of compensation. Things like, are you offering health insurance? What other kinds of benefits are you giving? Car benefits or gas benefits or phones to your employees. So there's some extra data that we want to collect around that. But I think for the first year, it was pretty good report, just chock full of information. The next tool we have is also on our website on the resources page, and that's the Skimmer Service Rate Index. So we looked at pricing today based on 4 areas of the country, which I know is a kind of a large area in order to be able to do an accurate comparison. We actually have the data available through the Service Rate Index on our website that allows you to look at rates on a per stop or per month basis with chems and without chems for every state in the US. So if you're curious to know what the medians or the mins or the max prices are on average for your state, you can go there and look and compare your rates to what others are charging. And in Florida, it was pretty stark, as Jack mentioned before. Even just looking at Georgia versus Florida, there was a huge delta in what people were paying for pool service, and it's a good indication that that it may be time to raise prices. The next one, if you want to raise prices, the price increase toolkit. This is a webinar that we recorded last year where we also shared rate data, but there's also some really cool tools that come along with it. One of those tools is a price increase calculator. So it lets you put in the number of customers you're servicing or pools that you're servicing, your profits, and what you want to raise your prices by, and how many customers you can afford to lose if your prices go up. We hear, I've asked a lot of people, like when you do a price increase, how many customers have you lost? And the most I ever hear is like 5%. Most people say I'll lose 1 or 2, but the most is 5% as a max. So if you're thinking about raising your prices, it's pretty stark when you look at the numbers. Even a $10 increase, even if you have 50 pools, if you do a $10 increase and you lose 5% of your customer base, you're still going to be making a whole lot more money for a lot less work. And so that tool in particular is really, really great for just helping you wrap your head around churn and profitability, and kind of what your profits could look like if you do a price increase and lose some customers. And then the last is a growing your pool service business guide. It has a lot of great marketing tips, very similar to the things that we asked about in the report and that were covered in today's presentation, but things like reducing drive time and being able to get really tight routes, and some marketing tips and some hiring tips. So another really great resource that's available for free. Do we have any questions that have come through, Scott?
Yeah, and unfortunately, we won't get to all of them. We had a lot of attendees this time, and we covered a lot of material. There's one that I absolutely have to get to. Someone said, this report is really helpful. What are you going to do to follow up? What's next for Skimmer?
I'll jump in. So Nikki mentioned this, the goal is for this to be an annual report, and every year it's going to get better and better, and we'll have more and more data every year. We are actively designing new webinars that have some of the content that came out of here and some that didn't. Sort of a sneak preview, we'll be launching an online community, hopefully as soon as April, which will be something that'll be available to all Skimmer customers. There'll be probably a portion of it available to non-Skimmer customers as well, where people will be able to just go back and forth, kind of think Facebook, but really focused on the pool service space and with pool service pros and the different partners. We are we're trying to enhance our product every day. We just announced this week, we're launching a partnership with Orinda, because we know a lot of the customers, well, we saw it in the report, right, that there's great brand loyalty around Orinda and Aosta. And so if we can incorporate their LSI calculator and dosage recommendation engine in the Skimmer, that's something that's really going to help our customers and help the entire industry. So there's a lot of follow-on that you'll see over the next, certainly this year and well into the future. Our as Nikki has said, our goal is to really help the industry transform and help our customers build great businesses. Technology is a part of that, but it's only a part of it. We are very committed to having, really, we are the only platform in the industry, but for a platform to mean we have content, we have support, we have guides, we have technology, whatever it may be, to help really transform this industry.
Well said.
I was just this is so new. I'm sure that you're still noodling it out how the alliance with Orinda is going to work, but that seems like some real opportunity there to combine, obviously, software with a company like that. Do you have any ideas on how that might work going forward?
We're still scoping it out. What we do know is one of the call it problems we're trying to solve is that we have customers that are using Skimmer, and then they pull up the Orinda app in the backyard and are having to kind of toggle back and forth. And we'd love that not to happen, right? What if it was all within Skimmer and the data was available and then any of the Orinda products were available from within the Skimmer app? Like, that's all the ultimate goal. I don't know, in the first launch, it probably all won't be there, but certainly having the integrated apps, the Orinda app and the Skimmer app integrated with each other will absolutely be part of this.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Nikki, we got like 30 seconds. You got anything to add to that, or should we all get back to work?
I did see a question about the Canadian market. We do have customers that use our platform for Canada. We don't have full functionality and support for Canada, especially because our app is primarily using US dollars. But it does work. A large portion of our app does work in Canada for the person who asked. And if you are interested in Skimmer, if you want to give it a try, you can try it risk-free for 30 days. We have an amazing support team. Our support team actually picks up the phone. It's great, usually within a couple rings. I love to be at a trade show and people ask about the support, and I'll just pick up my cell phone and dial, and I always get a friendly, live human being, a member of our team that answers. So give us a call. We're happy to help. If you've got a lot of data that you need to bring in, we've got a success team that can help you bring that data in and get you set up for success. We handle billing, we handle routing, we handle managing your customer communication and really kind of closing that loop between the office, what's in the field, and the customer. And so we're here if you'd like to give us a shot and try Skimmer risk-free for 30 days.
Well, with that, I'm going to thank everyone for coming, and especially thank you, Nikki and Jack. I learned a lot today, things that will help me going forward in this industry. So thanks very much, and I think we'll wrap things up there.
Thank you, Scott.